What's going on? What's going on, man? This is Profe Gayu. My bad about the connection just now. The connection went out a little bit. But look, in this video, I'm going to make it short and sweet, in which I wanted to discuss 3 inconveniences, 3 things Americans ignore when moving abroad, but they really should not. All right? Stay tuned. I'm going to hit the, show you guys my intro video, and then we're going to go ahead and get started. I couldn't take it no more, so I left the Matrix.
And my money just tripled. I had a good time and it cost me a little. So I found peace, tranquility, faith in my abilities.
I couldn't take no more, so I left the Matrix. All right, mi gente, this is Profe Gayu. Once again, I'm back. So in this video, I want to discuss the 3 things, the 3 inconveniences why Americans should not ignore when moving abroad. Now, one of the big things I find that a lot of us Americans, when we move abroad or when we're thinking about moving abroad, we really do get caught up in the excitement, you know, the excitement of living abroad, you know, the new culture, the weather, the adventure. We get caught up in that, and we tend to focus on the big things. And what are the big things? The big things are visa. The big things are my job, income, where is that coming from? And, you know, those are the big things that folks tend to get caught up on when they are moving abroad. But there are some small things, some small details that I feel that a lot of folks tend to ignore when they move abroad. And then after they actually make the move abroad, they tend to look at, oh, I wish I would have figured this out before. But that's something we'll talk about. So, and I got some notes here, so I'll keep referring to my notes. But let's go. Things you need to consider. The one thing I felt that was really big when I first moved abroad that I did not consider myself, that I think is really important, is mail. Especially with us coming from the United States, we depend a lot on mail, right? We depend a lot on, our society works and operates with mail. Whether it's just USPS, mail service, whether you're getting mail from what banks or medical care. I get a lot of stuff from the VA. Whatever the case is, mail is a really important part of our society. And even though we focus a lot more on email in today's age, a lot of the small things we still have to deal with mail. And some companies and some organizations will not forward your mail abroad. So that's why that's really something that we should take a look at. Now, let's look at, for example, when I moved to DR. When I moved to DR, I could not depend on regular mail service. So I had to seek out a forwarding mail service. And in DR, that exists. They have companies like, I think it's called Taino Express or, you know, Bayman Cargo, and a few others where they actually have an address in Miami. And you will have your, and they will give you, when you sign up for that company, they will give you an address in Miami that you will send all your Amazon to or whatever other mail you get to, and they will forward it to your region in the Dominican Republic, your local office. You will go to that local office, pay whatever it costs for the wait to get to DR, and maybe some taxes depending on the amount, and then boom, you have your package. So it was really easy to forward my mail from the US to DR. Pretty simple. But some things you cannot forward. For example, I know that if you had to renew your driver's license, there may be some states where you cannot forward that driver's license to another mail or to another mail address or to an out-of-state mail address. You can't do it. So therefore, you have to figure out how you're going to work around that. Now, many of us may have some family or friends that we can depend on that can receive all our mail, but then they have to forward the mail to you. Or maybe you just let them hold it until your next time you get back to the States. But sometimes that may not be an option. So you have to figure out how to forward it. And here's the dilemma. Sometimes when you forward it, you have to forward via FedEx. Now in DR, there's FedEx, there's UPS, but I must add, it's not as efficient as you will find UPS or FedEx or DHL in the United States. You won't. And I say it's even really, really efficient here in Mexico too, but in DR it's not. Here's why. In DR, there's no, some places don't have a real address, right? There is no real postal service. Everyone in DR, if they have to depend on mail of some sort, they depend on local couriers. That's local to DR, not international. So when you don't have a real street address, it makes things more complicated. And you'll find in a lot of countries outside the United States, the street addresses are very approximate, right? So if you live on, what do you say? You live on 123 Coral Avenue in Miami, Florida, with this zip code 33185. It's very simple. But if you live in the Dominican Republic, you may not have, 123 Coral Avenue. It may be Coral Avenue between Colmado, Garcia, and Lavanderia Hernandez. It's like it gets real complicated. So whenever you have an address in the yard, it's very approximate. You have to add references and things like that. And when they come to you, they may not be able to just put your mail in a mailbox. They have to actually have someone answer the door, sign a paper, check the ID. If it's not you, they won't give you the envelope or the package. It gets really complicated. So those are some of the things that you really need to work out. How are your plan on how are you going to be able to receive mail or forward mail when you move abroad? I know it sounds really simple for some folks, but there are some folks that live in some areas where it takes a lot more planning to receive mail. One other thing I want to mention, for those folks living, do you have any questions? No, not yet. For those folks living in the Dominican Republic, and living in Mexico, Mexico just passed a new, I don't want to say law, but they added a new regulation. So whenever someone sends you a package or you have a package sent to you in Mexico, you have to add your RFC, add an FSA, your RFC. You got to have your CURP, right? And if you don't have those things, you got to have your passport, phone number, and your passport number, phone number, and your address. Of course, you'll have your address, but you got to have your contact information as well. They may even add email address as well. And you'll find that a lot of couriers in the United States are not up to date with the requirements to send packages to Mexico. So therefore, your item may get held up. And because it's a new regulation and a lot of items are getting held up in Mexico, it may get held up for weeks. So just keep that in mind when it comes to planning for dealing with mail when you move abroad. Now, the next thing is banking. Banking is important because when you move abroad, you will have some transactions that require it to be made from a local bank. For example, when you may move abroad and you may sign a rent agreement with a private owner or a company, and they may say, hey, you have to send your funds to this bank. Well, that bank, you could send internationally from your US bank, but it may not be feasible for the cost and the time it may get to its destination. So you may have to use a local bank, and that's no issue losing a local bank. But how will you get your funds from your foreign bank in the US to your local bank here in Mexico or in the Dominican Republic? That's where things get complicated, and you will have to work those things out. Uh, Also, it gets even more complicated when you are dealing with you're buying things here with your U.S. bank account, right, or your U.S. debit card or credit card, but you're being charged foreign transaction fees for every time we withdraw money from your bank account at the ATM, or you're charged foreign transaction fees every time you swipe your card in a local supermarket or wherever you go. And that can be exhausting. So therefore, you will have to plan ahead in the United States to make sure you actually have a debit card or credit card that does not charge foreign transaction fees. The other thing when it comes to banking is what happens when your credit card or your debit card expires. Oh, I'm here in Mexico. My credit card, debit card expires. How am I going to get that card? Maybe I should call my bank and have them mail it to me here in Mexico. Granted, some banks will do that, but some banks will not do that. They will only mail to a local US address. And that's where things get complicated. That's why it's important that you plan that part out before moving abroad on how you're going to receive things. Now, it may be just as simple that you have it mailed to a friend or a family member in the United States, but then they will have to forward it to you wherever you are. And hopefully you have a reasonable address here in Mexico or here in the DR where it can be forwarded to via FedEx or DHL fairly easy. I think I got a comment. Chicky Jenny. Hello, Chicky Jenny. How are you? You put that up here. Chicky Jenny, how are you? How are you? So like I was saying, you gotta work that bank piece out. Also, a lot of US banks require verification on your phone, right? So if you have a US bank, you are required to have a US number. So therefore, when you log into your account, they'll send you a verification code via text, and then you'll have to receive that text and respond accordingly. That's why it is very important if you got US bank accounts to have a US phone number, because if you don't have a US phone number, things can get complicated. Now, some will say, well, it's no problem. I'll just get a Google Voice phone number and get my verification codes that way. Yes, some banks would accept the Google Voice phone number, but some banks would not. Some banks would not. So therefore, they would not accept the Google Voice phone number, and you don't have a US phone number, then you're just out of luck, and you don't want that to happen to you. So therefore, those are some of the small things that people don't really think about when they move abroad, but it can become very, very inconvenient if you are not planning accordingly, right? I got any questions about any of that at this point? Anything at all? Nothing? All right, I'll keep going. Let's see here. The last thing I have on here is also important, but it relates to what I've been talking about, and as it relates to planning accordingly, and that is healthcare. And I say healthcare because people often think that healthcare in the US, the way healthcare is run in the US is sort of the standard in other countries. And it really isn't the case. I can tell you that healthcare outside of the US is a little more personable. When you have a doctor, you'll probably have that doctor's personal number, personal WhatsApp. That way you can communicate with that doctor. You know, you cough and you can call the doctor, right? Or text the doctor. So that doctor is very personable, very much reachable for the most part in the Dominican Republic and in Mexico. Now, the actual healthcare system, when it comes to having healthcare insurance, your policies, and how that works, it can be very, very different. You'll find some similarities, right? You'll find some, but you'll find things to be very different, especially if you're an older individual or if you have existing conditions. It can be, sometimes you'll find that some healthcare insurance companies will not even accept you because you have those prior health conditions, or you are above a certain age, or you are overweight, or things of that nature, right? You'll find that some won't even cover you. So those are some of the things you have to really plan before moving abroad. Also, in the case of Mexico and in the Dominican Republic, it is really important that you you buy health insurance before you move, because you'll find that a lot of health insurance companies, they require you to have at least 6 months on the policy or 1 year on the policy before they will reimburse you for anything, for medicine, for any types of surgeries or consults, anything. So therefore, it's in your best interest to start the policy before you move abroad. And that way, when you actually make the move abroad physically in that country, whether it's Dominican Republic, DR, or wherever you are, you will actually have health insurance coverage that is active, right? Very important, very important. What else? Forgive me, I have some notes taken, so I want to make sure that I'm capturing everything. Yeah, so those are sort of the main three things that Americans should not ignore when they move abroad. And I don't have any questions. And I think I hit on all the important things I want to talk about. But if you have any questions out there, I got 2-3 folks and on the live. If you have any questions, let me know. But if I don't have any questions, I'll leave it at that. You can always leave a comment down below and reach out to me, Instagram and Profegayu, or email if you have any questions. And again, if you're thinking about moving abroad, definitely plan accordingly. All right. Do me a favor, like, share, subscribe, comment down below. Any questions, concerns, let me know. And I hope to see you soon. Peace.